Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, there's no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision. Trendsetter.
Here we go. Let's
Hello.
go. Hello, Victoria. How are you?
I'm fine, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I'm glad to have you back on again and sort out a few topics that we've been listening to in the last couple of days.
Yeah, a little controversy's been stirred up.
Yeah.
Oh, particularly about, sorry?
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I know we want to address the GLP-1 controversy that was raised on a recent, very popular video show from Kelly Hogan, where she
Yeah.
hosted Dr. Ken Berry, who is an icon in the carnivore community, and his recommendation for microdoses of GLP-1 medications to help people who seem to be struggling very hard with
Yeah.
eating carnivore, which is unusual to me, but I have my theory about why that could be the case.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yes. And so do I, because this is the one thing that I think people need to understand. He only mentioned microdosing. He never mentioned that
Yes,
you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. He only
exactly.
mentioned that you can actually do this at the beginning, but you're going to be in a position to get off them.
Oh dear, I lost your audio.
No,
Speak
can you
again.
hear me again?
Yes, now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all he said. He said that it's just going to be implemented at the very, very beginning to help you, but we have to be in the position to get you off them, and that's what he was mentioning.
Yes, which means it has to be monitored. And I have two
Hmm.
issues with that. One is, where does one get a microdose of the medication?
Hmm.
How do you get that? You can buy it online. Even if you've never seen a physician, you can go online, and the companies that are selling the legitimate stuff, hopefully, will give you a prescription sight unseen, without examining you, without medical history. I'm overdubbing what I had recorded earlier here. Microdoses of semiglutides are available, but how does one know the correct dose for their height, weight, and gender? Is an oral dose as effective as an injection? These are questions that need to be answered. Thing is not being medically supervised, where a doctor can say, oh, that reaction you're having, or that whatever you're going through right now, that's a reaction to the medication. Stop it right now. You may not know. So I think that's really harmful. And the big problem is that they're still not learning how, if they're doing carnivore and microdosing, still not learning how to
Exactly.
do carnivore fully fat. They need
Yeah.
to have their fat in. And so many new carnivores think the diet is just protein, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
So
And
that's my.
I completely agree with you, because although we're both big fans of Ken Berry, we're massive. I could see his point. I
Yes.
understand his point, but what I think what upset us as carnivores is that when he mentions it can be implemented if done in the right way. Now, the issue I have is this. I have worked with an awful lot of women that were obese, like big women. And these also wanted to do surgery, and they also wanted to go down the Ozempic route because they tried everything else. But they didn't understand hormones. And this is where I came in. This is when I said, okay, listen, you've been doing a calorie deficit for pretty much all your life. You've been doing a diet, you've been on low fat for a long time. Let's flip the switch and let's give your body the right nutrients, and let's see what happens. Within a
Yes.
couple of weeks, these people are dropping weight very, very quickly. Like very, very
Yeah.
quickly. I remember I had a woman who lost over 40 pounds in water weight within 1 week. 1 week she
Yeah.
lost a lot. And then she looked at the scales and she was worried. She actually mentioned to me, Mark, I'm actually losing so much weight. Is this natural? Is this normal? And I was like, yes. Like you
Yeah.
shouldn't be carrying this much weight.
Yes,
And
her
and this
body
is
was
yeah,
constantly holding on to it. Yeah.
yeah. And this is what we need to teach people is that the reason you're not fat because this is a genetic problem. You're overweight because this is a food problem. The reason why, and when we look at this, where you guys are from, the type of food that you guys are eating is an absolute disgrace. Like us people in Europe, it's not too bad. The amount of ingredients that are in our food in Europe is nowhere near as bad as
Oh,
what
not
you
like the
guys are.
States, not like the USA.
Nowhere near. I was over in Florida in just in December, and the amount of ingredients they have in the food is absolutely insane.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this is what people need to understand is that they're making these foods addictive so you can come back and keep on buying this food. And this is the
Absolutely
reason
true.
why
Yep.
and this is the reason why so many people are struggling with their eating habits. They can't they don't understand why they eat on a regular basis and they can't stop. And this is the reason why people are going towards these injections, because the one thing that these injections do is they stop the appetite. So they stop hunger straight away. But people need to understand that we can actually do this naturally because we actually produce GLP-1 in our stomachs.
Yes. Yes.
So what we need to do is we need to feed the gut the right food in order for that GLP-1 to work naturally. And how you're going to do that is by shutting off the main problem. What's the main problem that increases hunger? And send a signal to the brain that, listen, I haven't had enough. I need to eat more. It comes from carbohydrates and sugars. So when people say that carbohydrates and sugars are not going to make you fat, that's correct. What they're not correct on is it's going to have an impact on insulin. Now, if insulin is elevated, you're not going to be able to burn fat, and this is the problem. So you may be able to lose weight if you're in a low calorie diet or you're on a low fat diet, but the problem is it's not going to be sustainable. And more than likely, you're going to put the weight back on.
Yes, and I lost your last two words. I saw your mouth move, but you didn't. I didn't hear you. So speak.
So yeah, the last three words I was saying was like people are doing diets, they're not sustainable, and more than likely they end up putting the weight back on.
Yes, yes. Well, Dr. Berry, in that video we mentioned at the beginning, did talk about hormones towards the end of the video. And he suggested, especially women menopausal age, if you're pre or post or menopausal, to get a full workup of your hormones to see where you may be lacking and to look into getting artificial hormone replacement. And
Mm,
that was interesting to me because at no point in time did either he or Kelly address the issue of how fat helps you that way, and or that they I think they kind of did get on the topic of the additives in foods, but definitely the point is get off the processed foods so that
mm,
your body can straighten itself out, and the
mm,
elimination diet that carnivore is will do that for you. And
mm,
again, I love stressing the word fat. It's really important, it's crucial, it's
mm,
key. And without fat, you don't have a ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diets, by definition, are high fat, moderate protein, and negligible carbohydrates. So
mm.
that's what it sets the environment for your body to begin to manage its hormones on its own, starting with insulin, which is very crucial and ever present in our lives.
Yeah, see, this is the issue I have. Um, Nobody's been pushed towards proper nutrition when they're overweight. People are just saying this is a medical problem, and that's where I have the biggest issue, and that's where I had the biggest issue when Ken Berry spoke about this, because the minute I heard him saying that even though we have this in small amounts and we're only going to use it at the beginning and it's only going to be a short-term fix, even in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, we still shouldn't be encouraging this because this can be done. We should be encouraging people to go down the nutrition route first before we start implementing these injections. This should be the first protocol, in my opinion. We should be looking after the nutrition first, and then if nothing changes, then we can start looking at the injections.
Exactly true. I totally agree with that. That's the answer. And I, I'm sorry, the pharmaceuticals route, to me, even if you're desperate, I say you still haven't examined the nutrition. You
Exactly. Yeah.
still haven't done it right. And so many people who don't feel they need to even seek the micro dosages are still not doing carnivore right. I have that group, and every day, multiple people, the same issue. I'm not losing weight. I've been on this for almost 6 months or a year,
Mm,
and I'm gaining or not losing weight. And
mm,
they have not examined how they're doing carnivore. They're just feeding themselves protein, and
yeah.
that's not sufficient. In fact,
Mm,
that's going to reverse the situation because the body will grab that protein first. The liver prioritizes it over
mm,
fat. So that's why you have to force the fat, extra fat, over and above in a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio above protein as a function of total calories, not counting calories.
and
To
that's
get that
yeah,
in, that makes
absolutely.
ketosis
Yeah.
work.
And this and
Otherwise,
this is And this is why I was always against this diet. Like, if you had asked me this question 5 years ago about Atkins and the keto diet and carnivore diet, I would have said to you, like, listen, these diets are not sustainable because I feel miserable doing them. But I didn't realize how important fat was because I was just eating a lot of protein with a lot of vegetables. That's
Mhm.
all I was doing. I was eating a lot of lean sources of like chicken, white fish. I was eating no fat whatsoever. And if I was eating
Mhm.
fats, I would have had fats from like almond butter, avocados. So the sources of fats that I was getting in weren't even good sources.
No, that's very true. And yeah, people think they're eating cleanly because they're eating lean meats. And they're not doing ketosis. It's not ketogenic without that
Mm,
high fat
mm,
component.
yeah. And see, this is what I do when I take on clients at the very, very beginning. I actually don't focus on protein. I actually focus on fats. So let's say I was taking on a client who was overweight, like really overweight. I'm going to give this person a very large amount of fat. Now, people will probably think that surely you can't give people fat because that fat is actually going to make people fat. But that's not what's going to happen at all. When you give people fats, it's actually going to fix their hormones. It's going to fix their metabolism. It's going to get
Yes,
things moving. It's going to
that.
get things moving very, very quickly. You're going to feel good about yourself. So the weight is going to
Yes.
come off naturally. The weight is going to come off naturally. You're going to be able to get rid of that hunger. You know what I mean? Yes, protein can help us feel satisfied, but if you're eating too much of it, not only will it be converted into sugar, but as I mentioned, you're not going to feel good. Whereas when you eat fat and you eat a lot of fat, you not only are you going to drop weight, but you're going to feel great doing it.
Yes, I want to address the point you made just a little while ago. It's got to be the right fat, and the right fat is animal fat. Any plant fat or plant oil or fatty plant like avocados brings phytosterols, sterols
Mm,
and stanols. Those are plant cholesterols. They will
mm,
replace animal fat cholesterol in the body because they're more easily absorbed. They're lighter. So
mm,
cholesterol does two things mainly in the body. It's a component of every single cell you own, including your eyeballs. Any cell in your body is constructed with cholesterol. So
mm,
cholesterol's primary job is to repair those cells and help you create more to replace them. And the second job of cholesterol is to help you balance your hormones. If you don't have cholesterol, if the phytosterols, the plant oils come in and replace cholesterol, they're not doing that job. They
Hmm.
don't help you rebuild cells. That's why
Hmm.
we age on a low fat
Hmm.
diet so quickly.
Hmm.
And they're not helping you reconstitute your hormones. Not at all. You're not getting, that's why so many people, especially, it's especially noticeable in women and men who age and lose testosterone, that it's not getting replaced. And you go on the
Hmm.
carnivore diet, you need to bring in the animal fats. And we need to stress it's got to be animal fats, not the
Hmm.
plants, because the plants don't do the same job. They will maybe add some lubrication to your body, but what they also do, which is detrimental, is they send the cholesterol off to be excreted. And it gets excreted in two primary ways. One is it gets stored in your arteries as sticky plaque, and because it converts the cholesterol cells convert to the sticky small cell type, and secondly, it gets excreted. So the cholesterol you do eat, if you're or make on when you're eating vegetables and taking in plant oils, just is useless. It's sent away. You get very little benefit from it. But when you start the carnivore diet and you're taking in animal fats, you've totally replaced that situation. You've gotten
Hmm.
rid of those plant oils, and they're not there to hinder the process of rebuilding with cholesterol.
And see, you made a very, very good point about the brain. See, this is what's important as well. People think that in order for me to get healthy and look after my brain health, I just need to focus on weight loss. So once I take these injections, I can eat wherever I want. As long as I'm losing weight, I'm very, very healthy. And that's a big issue also,
Yes.
because if you're removing fat from your diet, then internally you're basically you won't be able to see this, but you're turning to shit. You're gonna turn to crap. Why is it that so many people are taking these Ozempic drugs, but they're still battling with with mental health issues? You know what I mean? Why are they still struggling? Why do they need to take an injection to sort their weight loss issue out when it's not a weight loss issue they have in the first place? It's a health issue. They're struggling with their health. So surely, if we want to improve someone's health and look at the long-term success of what we should be doing, looking after somebody, we should be focusing on, okay, how can we make these people healthier without injecting people? And this has to come down to the food. It just makes it's common sense. And what we need to get rid of is the mainstream when they keep on telling us that cholesterol and high LDL is the reason why many of us are dealing with problems like heart attacks, dementia, all this crap. There's been no research on high cholesterol, especially from dietary fats. Never. There's never been one study to prove this. The studies that they keep on coming out with is what else were they eating? When they look at these studies on fats, they didn't look at what other people were doing. Were they smoking? Were they drinking? Were they sitting around? Were they eating carbohydrates? Were they eating sugars? There's so many factors. When you were cooking your foods, what oils were you cooking them in? Were you cooking them in seed oils, or were you cooking them in like normal butter? So there's so many questions we need to ask people. We need to ask these questions and say, well, hang on a second, before you come out with these crazy statements about heart attacks and cardiovascular disease, I don't want to look at a study. I want you to speak to someone like Victoria. Speak to someone like me who's been eating this way for the last 4 years. Victoria's been eating this way for the last 7 years. She eats a high amount of saturated fats and she's in the best health possible. There's your evidence right there.
Yes, yes. And I would want to address one more little issue. I can hear people say, but I'm on the carnivore diet, but I'm still getting cravings. I crave sugar. I'm
Mm,
craving sweets and carbs. I want to say again the word fat. You're not getting enough fat if your cravings are
Yeah.
high like that. If you
Yeah.
walk through the day and all you can think of is where your next chocolate bar is coming from, then you're having an issue of not satisfying yourself with the food. And it means you need to have more animal fat, whether that's butter or fat from meat. And people say, well, I can't just eat plain old fat the way Kelly Hogan does. Well, cook it. Cook it and make it crispy. It just takes about 5 minutes if you chop it up and you heat it in a frying pan. It turns brown and crunchy. And
Mm.
just an ounce, 28 grams of that stuff is 20 grams of fat. And you need to start tracking. Now, that's my other bugaboo.
Can I
I'm very much in favor of tracking your fat, especially if you're at the start of the diet and you don't know what it means to eat a lot of fat. It's very good at helping you get a picture. You don't have to do it forever, but just to get a picture of what you need to eat in order to get the fat that gets you into a continuum of ketosis.
can I ask you a question, Victoria? Because you're obviously more educated than I am, because you're doing carnivore a lot longer than me. What's your opinion when people are doing carnivore and they still have that craving? Do you think that's a mineral deficiency that they need to add in more salt?
Um, I've not found that to be personally true. Some people say they do, but then again, you'll find those people are taking the brand of electrolytes that has a sweetener and a
Mm.
flavoring in it, so
No,
that they're meeting their
no,
cravings.
I'm talking of just regular salt, just salt in your meals.
I use a cave salt. Yes, I think I do use salt. I'm salt sensitive. I can't use too much of it, but I lightly salt my meal at every meal, and I think it's more so fat, lack of sufficient fat in the diet,
Mm.
because that satisfies the appetite. I think it's very, very key. I'm not going to really give an opinion on the salt because I took electrolytes in my first year because I thought I had to. And then I stopped them when I saw that my body was reacting to too much sodium. And then I
Mm.
was fine without them. So, and
Yeah.
I wasn't having cravings because I was eating a lot of butter. And to me, again, it goes back to fat. Work with the fat first. Also include sodium in your diet, of course, and it should be a cave salt or a rock salt as opposed to a sea salt, which might have
Mm.
microplastics in it. But a Himalayan or a Redmond's brand salt might be good for that. But I'm saying fat is where it's at. It's so
Yeah.
crucial.
Yeah, because I think people need to understand that even we don't need to eat a large amount of salt, but we
No.
also need to understand that a little bit of salt is actually important for
Oh, yeah.
good
Yes.
heart health.
I think so. Yes, it's
Mm.
necessary for life. There are some carnivores who have cut out fat. Sorry, cut out salt. Bella, the steak and butter gal, has cut out
Mm.
salt. Dr. Chafee,
Mm.
Anthony Chafee,
Mm.
has cut out salt. There's a couple who've been carnivores for almost 30 years. The Andersons. They're floating around Facebook. You can find them. Joe and Charlene Anderson. They've been carnivores for years and years, and they have cut out salt. They stopped salt a long time ago. One can get their minerals from meat, but it doesn't hurt to add a little bit extra. I think it helps with water balance. So yeah,
Mm.
it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad
Yeah,
thing.
well,
It's a bad thing to overdo.
I've actually experimented this, so I haven't had salt in 2 weeks. I just
Oh,
took salt out.
really?
Yeah, I took
Really?
salt. No, I used to love salt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I felt I was getting a bit bloated, and I felt I was probably taking in too much. But I remember you saying to me, it was actually you that said it to me a couple of weeks ago, and you were saying that we actually don't need too much salt in the diet because we're actually getting a lot of salt in our food already. So I was like, okay, well, why am I taking in extra salt then if I'm getting it in my meats? So I said, right, okay, let's remove it. Let's take it out for the next 2 weeks. I haven't seen any changes at all. If anything,
Really?
my gut health, yeah, I think my gut health has improved a lot better since I removed it.
Fascinating. That's excellent that you're an experimenter one. We are victims of a kind of a fad doctor whom I don't even allow posts about him in my Facebook group. He has a long name we won't mention so we don't get sued. And he started up that you need salt, you need salt. Well, yes, we need some salt, but not in massive quantities. And
Mm,
in the States, we have a recommended requirement of 2,000 milligrams a day. And I think that's a lot because I work at a level of under 1,000, usually 850. And I've watched it. I've tracked it and I'm quite comfortable there and I'm getting salty taste if I want it. I'm
mm,
not afraid of it. I'm just not forcing it. I'm not
mm,
doing 2 or 3 doses of a electrolyte
mm.
in my diet. I don't miss it. Well, good for you. Who you
I,
don't need anything extra like that. No.
I just think that when I was having the salt, I was retaining a lot of water in my gut. That was the main area where it was, okay, something's not right here. Something is not right here. I just felt bloated and I knew that I was just getting this swelling. I was getting this swelling feeling in my stomach. And not only
Mhm.
that, there would have been sometimes I would wake up in the morning and I would have this, how can I explain it? I'd have this little bit of pain in my chest.
Oh no.
Um,
Well.
and I was like, okay, this is not good. This is not good. And then
Hmm.
I was getting this numbness down in my hands also. And I was like, okay, am I heading towards a heart attack here or what's going on here? Um, and then
No,
I
that's
realized,
vasodilation. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. And then when I spoke to you about this a few weeks ago and you said to me, like, listen, there's a few people in the carnivore space that are not having salt. I was like, okay, I might try this because everybody that I hear talk about the carnivore diet, everybody will tell you that you need to add in the salt. We need the salt. And the majority of the carnivore space will tell you this. But it was you and it was actually another person that said, no, you can actually go without it. So I said, right, okay, I need to experiment this on myself first of all before I actually give an opinion on this. And that's why I waited. I said, wait till about 2 weeks, and then I'll have this conversation with Victoria. And as I said, once I removed it, I feel so much better.
Wow, that's great. That's excellent and good for you. I'm glad that you had that positive reaction to it because yes,
Mhm.
you that numbness and I don't know about the pain in your chest, but the numbness could be related to vasoconstriction, which comes from the salt, and
And
that's why
see,
my
what
blood pressure
and
goes
what's
up.
your, and and what's your opinion that because I was thinking that if I wanted to get extra potassium into my diet, would you advocate add in salt or add in an avocado?
Oh, yeah. Potassium's pretty dangerous to supplement. They med, mainstream medicine recommends doing that. I wouldn't add an avocado.
Mm.
And what you might want to do, oh, what kind of a salt do you use when you do use salt?
So the only one we
It's-
have over here that's a quality salt will be pink Himalayan.
Yeah, that's what I use all the time. And
Mm.
my potassium levels are always good when
Mm.
and I get my blood checked pretty often. So you just ensure that you're taking that. What makes you feel that you're not getting sufficient potassium?
No, I feel good. I was just no, it's just a question, because somebody asked me this a
Hmm.
few weeks ago, and I said, all right, I'll speak to you about this because somebody was saying to me that if you want to get extra potassium into your diet and you're not a big fan of salt, and this guy is actually a carnivore, and he
Hmm.
was he was saying like, listen, to get your sodium up and get your potassium up, if you don't want to have any salt, you can introduce an avocado. Now, I wasn't a big fan because I was like, okay, well, he's advocating we should add in a fruit. And I know when I add in an avocado straight away, I can notice the triggers and I can notice the problem straight away. So I was like, okay, well, hang on a second. I don't think we need to do this. I think what we should do is If you feel you're not getting enough potassium or enough sodium, then yes, you can add a little bit more salt, but you should have
Mhm.
no issues getting your sodium in if you're eating the right meats.
Yes, yes, and that particularly that avocado is an oily plant, and it brings a lot of those phytosterols that I
Mm,
mentioned earlier, the sterols and the stanols that block cholesterol.
mm,
So yeah, and yes, it's a fruit. There may be some carbs in there, but the mechanical impact of an avocado a day. Everybody goes, "Oh, I can have an avocado," and I'd say no, because you're counteracting all the good that your animal fats are doing for your body.
and
So
and all
I'm
and
not a fan of that solution.
yeah, and also you need to understand, you need to be careful as well where you're getting your avocados. Are they going to be in season, or are you getting them from, say, a different country? Because that's a big problem as well. Because I know in the summertime the avocados are in season in this country, but if you buy an avocado, say in October, November, December time, they're like rocks. They're not even like, they're not even soft. So these could be imported from China. They could be imported from anywhere in the world, and we don't know how these could have been. They could have been in a warehouse for months. We don't know.
Yeah, I just stay away from plant matter in general. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, no, I'm not a
and
big fan. I'm not a big fan of. I think it's fair to say that we've been doing carnivore for a long, long time, and we haven't had any vegetables at all in that time.
well, one could consult a physician, get a blood test, and see if a blood test tests out saying that you're low in or deficient in one or the other mineral, and
Mm,
get advice on how much to take, and test again to see if it raised that level that was
mm,
deficient. But
mm,
not to self dose with potassium, because it can easily get out of hand and cause
mm,
heart issues like crazy. We talk about palpitations, yeah,
mm,
because there's a
mm,
very delicate balance in the body of sodium, potassium, and I wouldn't mess with it without some kind of analysis as a basis. Say I start
mm,
here and I tried this and then this happened. So not to just take it and think, okay, that'll solve my problem because I think I'm low in potassium.
yeah,
So
and
do
and
some guidance.
and you made a good point, because I spoke to a guy before the Christmas. I took on a guy. It was around November time, and he wanted to do the carnivore diet. And I said, right, okay, I'll take him on and coach him. But he was taking electrolytes. He was taking
Yeah.
electrolytes from a well-known carnivore. And I would say, out of all the brands that I've seen, his brand is not too bad. But the problem was he was having too much of it, way too much of it. So his
Yeah.
potassium was like really, really high. Now the issue was he was actually doing a lot of cardio, also having this amount of potassium. So even though his heart, he was having these massive palpitations with the potassium, and on top of that, he was adding in more cardio. So he was on his way to having a massive heart attack.
Yeah.
Plus, he could never sleep. He could never understand why he couldn't sleep at nighttime,
Oh
because
my.
he was wide awake. So he used to ask me on a regular basis, you know anything about sleep? I can't sleep.
Mm.
And we went through all the dialogue. We spoke about stress. We spoke about caffeine. We spoke about many, many things. But the one thing we didn't speak about, because I didn't realize that he was actually drinking electrolytes, and that was he was drinking too much of it. And when I
Yeah.
realized he was drinking too much electrolytes, this was the reason why his sleep was absolutely shocking. So when I said,
Wow.
because he was taking in probably about 4 small teaspoons of electrolytes a day. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the average dose is of potassium, but he was
Hmm.
taking in well over his recommendation.
Yes.
And
It's so easy
once we
to do
brought it
that.
down, yeah, and then once we
Mhm.
brought it down and we just said, like, listen, just have half a teaspoon every single day. Within
Mhm.
within a week, his palpitations went down, and he was able to sleep no problem.
Yeah, it was causing his heart to race. That's just
Yeah.
it's
So
some of the
dangerous.
brands.
So dangerous.
Some of the brands, particularly one that has an alphabetical name, has 4 times the sodium of the other brands. A good brand is Keto Chow,
Yeah.
but the alphabetical brand has 4 times, which is also it's half a daily dose of salt. Now, people need to realize there's salt in meat, there's salt in eggs, there's salt in dairy if you're consuming it. So the salt is there, and this is why I favor the tracking, because you can also track your sodium as you consume those foods. So that gives you some insight, but that's really scary. That's how easily, and yes, he was headed for disaster because that not sleeping is a key. That's a clue. That's a big clue. Big red flag.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think people need to understand that yes, you probably need a little bit of sodium, but we don't need anywhere near the recommendations of what we've been told.
Absolutely true. Yes, and yes, true that. Because we're getting it in the processed food, and guess who's promoting those recommendations?
Exactly.
The processed food
Yeah,
manufacturers. Oh, unfortunately.
amazing. Right, so we covered an awful lot. Is there anything else you want to cover?
No, I said my piece. I certainly did. Thank you for letting me.
Yeah,
I think it's a good one.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that we're not having a go at Ken Berry. We're actually big fans. I'm a huge fan of Ken Berry, but I think what happened was he was misunderstood a little bit.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Because he did try to clarify later on so people wouldn't get the wrong idea. And I have seen where people say, oh, he said so and so. Well, he did not.
yeah,
So, yeah, take
yeah,
everything with a grain of
because that
salt.
yeah, because that was the biggest thing I seen on social media. Everybody was giving out, talking about, okay, he's after stabbing us in the back. Ken Berry doesn't know what he's talking about. But when I watched
Yeah.
it, I was like, okay, well, hang
Mhm.
on a second. People didn't actually watch this. You didn't actually listen
Yes,
to what he said.
exactly true.
You know
They
what I
took
mean?
what, yeah, and he really hedged his words. And he did say get off it and a short course, like 3 months, and then off it and not on it again. And again, I stress education about carnivore, how it works with the fat
Yeah.
as the key component is really crucial.
And if I was to leave the last word on this, you need to understand this, guys. If you are struggling and you're doing this on your own, then more than likely, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to fail. Because when I did carnivore at the very, very beginning, I was convinced I can do this on my own. But I made so many mistakes, and I couldn't
Yeah.
understand. So I said, right, okay, if I'm going to understand carnivore, then I need to research and I need to listen to people. But not only that, I need to invest in a coach so this coach can actually teach me the right way about carnivore. Because I made so many mistakes at the beginning. I left the vegetables in. I was eating too much protein. I wasn't eating enough fat. It wasn't until I done more research on this and I understood, okay, everything I was doing was completely wrong. So you need to understand if you are struggling, don't give up. Do more research or invest in a coach. That way, then you can get to your results a lot faster.
Very true. I agree.
Right. So we'll finish it off from here.
All right, Mr. Bark, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'll
You
speak to you
take
very
care
soon.
now.
Bye bye.
Righty. Bye bye.